Woj tweeted that his sources say the Sixers continue to shop Simmons for a trade, and they've got a steep asking price. Woj said, quote, Simmons and his agent, Clutch CEO Rich Paul, are in step with a move elsewhere. Draft night is always an ideal vehicle for a deal, but talks could continue into the summer, end quote. Let's say hello now to NBA front office insider Bobby Marks, joining us from Barclays Center ahead of tonight's NBA draft. And good to have you here, Bobby. I mean, Woj is also reporting that the Sixers are asking for a package kind of like the James Harden package for Simmons, similar to what Houston wanted in the talks that led them to dealing Harden to Brooklyn. I know you're talking to a lot of people, a lot of teams around the league. How likely is it that a team would be willing to give up that kind of a return for Ben Simmons?
Sage, I would say highly unlikely. And teams that I've talked to, they don't view Ben Simmons in that light as a James Harden, where Brooklyn had to give up, 4 first-round picks and 4 pick swaps. Even Paul George, where the Clippers, had to give up, multiple unprotected first pick swaps, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. They see him more in the light of a player like Drew Holiday. The Bucks acquired Holiday at the last year during the offseason. That was multiple first rounds and multiple pick swaps. So I think right now we're going to be in a stalemate as far as the future of Ben Simmons. I think this thing could go into the season, possibly even into training camp. But for me, I do not see a Simmons deal when we get to the draft tonight.
Okay, yeah, that news really not that surprising to too many people, I don't think, especially considering how inconsistent Ben Simmons has been, especially in crunch time. Meantime, Bobby, the Warriors, they have 2 picks tonight, 7 and 14 overall. So if you're Bob Myers, the Golden State GM, what factors are you considering with those 2 picks?
Yeah, I think the big thing is going to be the roster timeline of Steph Curry. We'll see Klay Thompson return this year, Draymond Green. They certainly have Andrew Wiggins coming back. This is kind of a win-now team, a team that has finances. Their $120 million luxury tax bill right now. How does pick 7 and 14 fit in the timeline? And is there a possibility to maybe take pick 7 and move back to a team like Memphis, who's at 10, and maybe you can pick up 2 established players that can help you win right now? But I labeled the Warriors to kind of free agent shopping in late July, just based on they have so many limited resources in the offseason from a free agency standpoint. They've got the veteran minimum exception. They've got the $5.9 million tax mid-level exception. Both picks come in on a 4-year controllable. But as we saw last year with James Wiseman, it's going to take a little bit of time from a development standpoint. And do these picks actually fit in as far as where they are?
Yeah, they've got some interesting young guys there. Who knows who they get tonight, as well as you mentioned, Klay Thompson coming back, Stephen, Draymond Green. This is a really fun team to watch. We'll see what they do tonight. The first round gets underway 7:30 Eastern time on ESPN and ABC. Bobby Marks, thank you. Look forward to seeing you tonight.
Tears ACL. We don't know when he's coming back. He could miss the whole season. We just need to acknowledge it. Is there any Kawhi Leonard leaving the Clippers possibility? What do we know? Because I don't care if he's injured. Teams will line up to get. We saw with Kevin Durant. If you're a top 5-6 player, teams are going to line up to get you, even if you're going to be out for the season. Maybe. What do we know about Kawhi?
I've gotten no indication that Kawhi Leonard is interested in doing anything but re-signing with the Clippers, rehabbing that injury. And you talk to other teams and agents who might be talking with the Clippers, the way they're proceeding certainly seems to be with Kawhi Leonard in mind. And listen, you don't know until a player signs that contract, but you just said it's an ACL. And there's an expectation that he could miss next season. You tear your ACL in the playoffs, especially in a season where we're pushed up against next season a month later, like they can't assume he will be on the court next year, so they've got to proceed accordingly here in free agency and at the draft with their own players. But I don't have any sense that he plans to do anything but to continue forward with Paul George and that group.
So if it's status quo in LA with Kawhi, and the current intel best we have is it's going to be status quo with Damian Lillard in Portland for a while. I don't think that deal, as of now, that doesn't appear to be something that's happening this offseason. That leaves us with the other big name that we've got to mention that will absolutely be in play this offseason, is already in play right now, and that's Ben Simmons in Philadelphia, which is the other obvious Beal team that I mentioned. This is a very complicated situation. His value, I think, is at an all-time low after just a really bad series against Atlanta where it looked like the free throws and everything was in his head. He passed up that dunk in Game 7 that was just, frankly, jarring to see. What's the latest we have on Ben Simmons?
the Sixers are engaged out there in trade talks, and they're taking on offers, they're making offers around the league. They're trying to get a sense, listen, who's the best possible player they can get back, because they're doing a trade to want to continue to be a championship contender. Like, they don't have to they can't be in of a mindset, and I don't believe they are, of we just have to move him. He's got 4 years left on his contract, and they can't overreact to that Atlanta series.
4 ironclad years, no options, no nothing. 4 ironclad years.
Which means he really has no leverage in where he could go. If you trade for Ben Simmons, you know you've got him under contract. He's going to come and play, and that opens up the landscape of teams. But I think it will be serious this week, and they're certainly, if there's a deal out there, they're going to do it. But they also know they get one crack at this, and making the wrong deal, it takes them out of championship contention with Joel Embiid in his prime. They've got to be really careful. But you know Daryl Morey, like, it is hard for him to, when there's a deal to be had in the air, no one loves making big deals more than him.
Well, you know, they went after Harden and didn't get Harden, and everyone thought, well, if they don't get Harden, Beal's the next logical target. But I think a name that's really interesting as an inflection point is C.J. McCollum in Portland. A Simmons for McCollum swap, who has to throw in draft equity, you know, they'll argue about that. But that has made theoretical sense. Theoretical, I say, because McCollum comes to Philly, and he's the guard that they don't have. The shooting, playmaking threat fits well with Joel Embiid. But then if you're Philly, you start to say, well, boy, that puts a lot of pressure on Joel Embiid to carry the defense almost by himself. And we saw what happened to Rudy Gobert in the playoffs when Utah built that kind of roster with them. And as you said, they don't want just anybody for Ben Simmons. They want an all-star player for Ben Simmons. And CJ is a very good player. He's never been an all-star team. When they look at Portland, they see the other guy.
They want the other guy.
They see the other guy.
Who's not available.
And say, we want that guy, which to me makes it for a very interesting situation. If the Sixers can get a guard some other way, just in theory, if they can sign and trade for Kyle Lowry, then they can look at their team and say, okay, we've papered over one need. What if we keep Simmons, see how he functions in this ecosystem where we have a legit lead guard, ups his trade value, see what happens in Portland, see what other situation goes haywire around the league, because something always goes haywire somewhere, and see what Ben Simmons' trade value looks like in January, February. I think that frankly makes a lot of sense.
Zach, I think more than anything, the fact that Simmons has 4 years left on his contract means that the Sixers don't just have to.
Names on the trade block and in free agency, starting with All-NBA, All-Star Bradley Beal in Washington, and some other big names too. Come back with us on the Woj Low.
To give them 5. Straight up, get rid of him. He's so petrified of shoot. Everybody and their grandmother's been telling you to shoot the basketball.
A lot of things are being said. It hasn't come from me. I haven't made any firm decision on what my future will be.
Are you frustrated?
Is the sky blue?
Welcome back to the Woj and Low Special, presented by Kia.
Welcome back to the Woj Low offseason extravaganza. We hit the draft now. Woj, let's go to the biggest veterans that could be moving, maybe moving. Who knows if they're moving? And it has to start in Washington with Bradley Beal, who's entering the last year of his contract, coming off a sensational All-NBA 30-plus points per game season. Where do we stand? Again, we're 4 days before the draft. Like, if they're going to anything's going to happen, there's got to be a little clarity soon. Where do we stand with this?
Bradley Beal has not told the Washington Wizards that he would like a trade. He has not told them anything, but he is invested in helping them in free agency. And, he's obviously gotten a chance to talk to Wes Unseld Jr., their new coach. Now, there's still time for that to happen, but the mechanism to do a Bradley Beal trade or any trade of a player of that caliber is to do it before the draft, because you want to do it around draft picks. Once the draft passes, it's a lot harder to do that deal, because hypothetically, if you're going to do it with Golden State, you're going to tell the Warriors who the players are. You would like it 7 and 14 if those players are in it. And so, listen, Bradley Beal has known the timetable of this, that if he wanted it to be moved, if he wasn't going to sign the extension and decided he was ready to move on, that it really needs to get done before draft night. That doesn't mean he can't still do it, but right now the Wizards are preparing for draft night, and they're preparing for free agency. And certainly Bradley Beal and Russell Westbrook are, part of their plans for next season.
You mentioned Golden State. Bradley Beal is